Did you honestly think that Morgan, Melusine, and Vitch would be the only meta units on back-to-back-to-back banners? Well, think again. Hello everyone, Oberon of FGO Reviews here, with a spotlight for FGO's best little moth boy, Oberon. We'll be examining his stats and skills, as well as going over pointers to how to utilize him effectively, and an overall grade comparing him to how he stacks up to the other 5-star servants. So if you're ready to blast through that damage ceiling, then hit that like button, subscribe, and ring my bell so you can catch all of these spotlight videos as they go up, and you can help out the channel. And now, on to Oberon's stats. Oberon has a max HP of 13,266 and a max attack of 11,810. Since Oberon is the first servant in a brand new class, there aren't many other pretenders to compare him to, even in JP. However, compared to the rest of the 5-star servants overall, his HP is a little bit below average while his attack is slightly above. When it comes to his command cards, Oberon has 4 hits on his quick card, 4 hits on his arts, 3 hits on his buster, and 6 hits on his extra card. He has an NP gain rate of 0.59% and a star rate of 20.5%. Both his NP gain and star generating are quite good due to his high hit counts. Overall, Oberon has solid all-around stats. Taking a look at his skills, Oberon's first skill is Curtain of the Night, rank EX. This skill increases the party's NP damage for 3 turns between 20 and 30% depending on level, and it also charges the party's NP gauge by 20%. His second skill is Morning Lark, rank EX. This skill charges one ally's NP gauge between 30 and 50%, and it generates between 10 and 20 crit stars, both effects depending on level. However, as a demerit, it does reduce the NP gauge of that ally by 20% after 1 turn. And finally, his last skill is End of a Dream, rank EX. This skill increases the buster card effectiveness of one ally for 1 turn between 30 and 50%, and it also grants them between a 50 and 100% boost to all of the NP damage up buffs that they have for 1 turn. Both of these effects depending on level. But as a demerit, this skill will also give that ally the Eternal Sleep debuff at the end of the turn. Moving on to his passives, Oberon's first passive is question mark, which increases the party's debuff success rate by 10% against every enemy except foreigner enemies, and it has a 500% chance to reduce the buff success rate of Merlin allies by 20% as a demerit. His next passive is Territory Creation, rank E-, which increases his arch card effectiveness by 1.5%, Item Construction, rank A+, which increases his debuff success rate by 11%, Riding, rank A, which increases his quick card effectiveness by 10%, and a Midsummer Night's Dream, rank EX, which grants him immunity to mental debuffs and curses. Moving on to his deck and Noble Phantasm, Oberon has a Buster Quick deck with Quick, Arts, Buster, and a Buster Noble Phantasm. His Noble Phantasm is War Rhyme, Goodfellow. It's an AoE Buster attack that deals damage to all enemies with a damage modifier between 300 and 500% depending on level. It also removes all of the offensive buffs on every enemy, inflicts sleep on them for a turn, and deals additional damage to enemies with the lawful alignment between 150 and 200% depending on overcharge. However, as a demerit, it will also give every enemy invincibility for a turn. Oberon's Ascension mat requirements are surprisingly nowhere near as bad as the other major fairies in this Lost Belt. For level Ascension, he needs 10 each of Void Dust, Phoenix Plumes, Lanterns, Magic Lamps, Chaos Talons, Black Tar, Stingers, and Fairy Scales. While for skill leveling, he's going to need 10 Yggdrasil Seeds and Stingers, 12 Spirit Roots, Gallbladders, and Crowns, and 15 Fruit of Longevity, Bells, and Scales per skill. As a pretender, he won't require any gems or class pieces though. Wow, I cannot believe Oberon's release is right around the corner for us. It honestly feels like he was released just yesterday in JP for me, so this is a little bit surreal. We really are stepping into a whole new era in NA, and I can't wait for it. Back in my Vitch spotlight, which by the way is linked in the description if you haven't seen it already, I mentioned that she is my pick for the most important servant releasing this year. And although I do stand by that, I didn't mean any shade to Oberon, because depending on who you are, you can very easily make the case that Oberon is just as good, if not even better, than Vitch. From a stat standpoint, Oberon is very solid. He has a decent chunk of HP and even an okay attack for a 5-star, which is unusual for a support. On top of that, he also has good star generating and decent NP gain. Even his passives like Riding, Midsummer Night's Dream, and the infamous question mark are all quite strong. But in a comedic twist that is befitting of the work Oberon originates from, all of those great stats and passives are irrelevant, because, similar to Miss Crane, Oberon is pigeonholed into a hyper-specific niche that ensures that he almost never remains on the field for longer than a single turn, let alone to attack or take any damage. Let me explain. It all comes down to his skills. Curtain of the Night, Oberon's first skill, is a party-wide NP damage buff that also charges the party's NP gauge by 20%. On any other servant, this skill would be their bread and butter, but for Oberon, it's just Tuesday. This is Oberon's weakest skill, which is saying a lot. Still though, this is a tremendously useful buff. Not only is that damage boost for 3 turns, which is perfect for farming, but the party-wide NP charge is also excellent for helping with farming as well. But that isn't even Oberon's best NP battery, because that belongs to Morning Lark. This skill is a star bomb that also grants an ally a full 50% NP charge. Combined with his first skill, Oberon has access to an incredible 70% NP battery for an ally. This has incredible synergy for servants that only have a 30% NP charge instead of 50%, which is a lot of them. Oberon has the best NP battery in the game, and it isn't even close. It's even stronger than Vitch's or Castoria's, and it sets up all kinds of crazy, incredibly consistent looping teams when used alongside them. Now there is a demerit that drains 20% NP charge from the targeted ally after a turn, but that basically never matters because, as I'm about to get into, once Oberon hits the field, there is no next turn. And that's all because of his last skill, End of a Dream. This is arguably the best skill in the entire game. In fact, not arguably, it literally is. This skill is Merlin's hero creation on steroids. It's a targetable mana burst that also multiplies the values of NP damage buffs by 100%. In other words, it's not only a 50% buster buff, but it also doubles the effect of any NP damage buffs currently on the targeted servant. That means even Oberon's own NP buff from his first skill goes from a 30% buff to a 60% buff. This also works on CEs, so Black Grail becomes twice as strong when this is used. To put that into context, Melusine has a 30% NP damage up of her own on top of Oberon's 30% buff. So a Melusine with a maximum broken Black Grail is going to receive a whopping 280% bonus damage just from this skill. And that isn't even counting the buster buffs, attack buffs, and any other damage modifiers that you can pack onto her. This skill is ridiculous and allows your DPS to hit for millions of damage from a single NP. This skill is the reason why servants with NP buffs like Melusine and Cuckoo are so powerful in the current meta. All that said though, this skill does come with a tremendous drawback, and that is that the turn after using it, the targeted servant is put into eternal sleep. This is a unique demerit that cannot be removed with any skill in the game. It also prevents the servant from attacking, switching out, or even being sacrificed with things like Chengong's NP. It is a true perma-stun that basically locks you out of using that servant for the rest of the battle. For this reason, Oberon should always be the servant that you bring in last to finish off the battle. For skill priority, of course level that 50% NP battery first for obvious reasons, followed by End of a Dream for the damage buff, and then Curtain of the Night last because that 20% NP charge doesn't scale. You don't really need to pick up any append skills on Oberon, but if you want, you can get mana loading. Oberon's NP, shockingly, is actually an AoE attack. It deals additional damage to lawful enemies, and it also removes their offensive buffs and puts them to sleep for a turn. But it does grant them invincibility for a turn as a demerit. You can't see it, but I did air quotes when I said demerit because this isn't really a demerit. The invincibility means that they can't have their sleep status removed when they get hit. So this NP is basically a one-turn AoE stun, which is extremely good. While Oberon's NP can deal damage, don't be fooled, this is purely a defensive Noble Phantasm. The buff removal and stun are useful stall tools, and they can actually make Oberon a good emergency button in challenge quests if you need to buy extra time. If it isn't apparent by now, Oberon is an incredibly powerful buffer and NP battery. In fact, he's probably the best damage buffer and NP battery in the entire game. The 70% charge is just too strong. The extra 20% may not seem like a lot, but trust me, it is. Especially since it gives more breathing room for servants to use CEs like Black Grail instead of K-Scope. Oberon's buffing capabilities are also completely unmatched. He enables servants to hit 2 million plus damage in a single target, which is necessary for those 90++ nodes, where the final bosses usually have over 1 million HP. Even outside of farming in story chapters and challenge quests, having the potential to hit such high damage numbers, even for just one turn, is invaluable. I'm currently playing through Lost Belt 7, and let me tell you, I'd be raging in half of these battles if I didn't have Oberon buffing my Melt and Nero so that they can deal 2 million damage in one Noble Phantasm. The other amazing thing about Oberon is that he isn't purely a buster support support like Vich. Sure, he has a mana burst, but his best buff is card neutral, and his battery is card neutral. So you can just easily slap him on an arch or quick team, and he can still buff your DPS to astronomical levels. So even if you don't have Vich, Oberon can be very useful alongside Scotty and Castoria. Now, because of the restrictive nature of his best skill, Oberon is almost exclusively best used as a swap-in with Battlesuit. You pretty much always want to have Oberon in your back row, just so that you can swap him in on the final wave, so you can give your farming servant that extra bit of NP charge and damage that they need to hit over those giant enemies. And that brings us to what's probably Oberon's only weakness, and that's his hyper-specificity. Oberon is made to be a key piece in a super endgame farming team where you're farming those 90++ nodes. And even then, he's merely one piece of that team. So to use him effectively, you need to already have an elite farming servant like Melusine or Spishtar, you also need elite farming supports like Vich, and you need elite CEs like Black Grail. So he appeals to a hyper-specific group of people who are simply looking to be the most efficient farmers of super endgame content. Unlike Vich or Castoria, his application isn't as useful for newer or more casual players. He's great to have and he can certainly help, but he's not necessary unless you're part of that endgame farming group. So whether you should roll for him or not really depends entirely on where you are in the game, and how much you value farming the most difficult content. It feels a bit weird to go over team comps for Oberon because he's so hyper niche, but like I mentioned, he works great with those top tier farmers who have NP buffs like Spishtar and Melusine, and you should use him in conjunction with other major farming supports like Vich and Castoria. Oberon's Bond CE is a Pavane for the deceased princess. It increases the party's damage against lawful enemies by 20%. This can actually be a good CE to use on Oberon since it provides your DPS with yet another extra damage modifier, so it's an excellent CE for support to have. If you don't have that, then give Oberon CEs that grant crit stars on entry like Golden Carp, Hide Hunter, or Holy Maiden's Training. Anything that gives crit stars right away is good because again, Oberon almost never wants to be on the field for longer than a turn, and a little bit of extra star power can give your DPS some extra chances for critting. By the same logic, First Drawing is also a good CE for Oberon as well if you want to pick it up because it also generates crit stars and it gives Oberon extra buster damage and starting NP charge, just in case you ever need to swap him in to NP right away. As for command codes, none. Don't use any on him because if you're attacking with Oberon's face cards, you've already lost. Overall, Oberon is obviously one of the best supports in FGO, and he is meta-defining in his own right. No servant can provide damage steroids as strong as his or even come close. His buffs let servants hit Looney Tunes levels of damage. He has the best NP battery in the game, which just adds to the incredible looping consistency of buster farming teams. And best of all, he isn't tied to a single card type like the other major supports in FGO are. He can pretty much be used on any meta farming team and make it exponentially better. So I gave the game away a bit, but Oberon gets an EX rating from me. I will say he isn't for everyone, and if you are someone who's brand new or more casual, then I'd recommend picking up Vich instead, if you can only choose one or the other. However, if you do want to maximize your farming efficiency for all of that content that we're getting soon, or you're already at the endgame state with a souped up team that you want to make even better, then Oberon is a must pull. And those are my thoughts on Oberon. It's funny because you never really realize how good he is until you get him. Personally, I farmed just fine for years in JP without him, but once I got him during his second rate up, well, I can just never go back. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. Join the party over in our Discord, chill with us on Twitch, and follow us on Twitter, and I'll see you all in the next Servant Spotlight. Soberoni out. Later.